$100 billion to stay in business this week. And off he goes to the senators and congressmen and says, look, there's a number of firms that are under pressure, and we can't have this because if we don't save those people on Wall Street and in banking, the whole economy is going to go down. But so you better give us another $700 billion
right.
in TARP funds because we're going to need them.
Okay, now let's just use him as an example. And again, I don't really know that much about him other than what I've read in the New York Times or Wall Street Journal, and I've seen him on TV. And he seems like a nice enough guy. But are these people really that shallow? Are they really that cynical? That they dedicate their lives to taking money from the taxpayers and just redistributing it amongst their friends?
Absolutely. They're called sociopaths. And if you talk to them the way that I have, not the people we're speaking about, because I've been out of that industry for about 20 years, but when you talk to them, anything goes. I mean, they run down the edge all the time.
And you say that meaning that at a certain place at the top, there's a certain elite group at the top, and they don't care. It's for them. It's all about them. It's how much money can we make? How much bigger a vacation can we take? How much bigger can my yacht be? And they look at the American taxpayers as just a bunch of suckers.
That's absolutely correct.
Okay, that would seem to. Okay, go ahead.
And it's like keeping score. It's not the money anymore, it's the power. I mean, there's only so much money people can spend. I've been there. And so what happens is that you say, well, I'm making $5 million a year or $500 million a year, and I'm at the top of my class. So what can I do to make myself and cement myself as number one? And they'll go off and leverage something, and it works, and they've made another $500 million or $5 billion, whatever the case is. It's a game with these people. After a certain amount of money is gleaned and put at their disposal that they made by doing these things, it becomes a game where they keep score.
And you believe that they actually, when they're sitting around in the leather-studded chairs of the club, they sort of treat it like a game. Like, here's what I did this week. Here's the chump I took for that. I mean, to treat them like any con man would.
Absolutely. And it's just like it's a trader mentality. They'll bet on anything. I mean, you should go to some of these annual things that go on within the brokerage firms, because I worked for large brokerage firms when I first was in the business, and they will bet on anything, and it's just a certain breed. And I think what draws people to that industry is the possibility of accumulation of wealth, which is part of what's a sign of success in our society.
Sure.
And these people are gamblers.
Okay, but they're gamblers with other people's money, which is like the best possible deal for a gambler, right? This would be like going to Vegas or Atlantic City and having 100 other people give you money for you to lose, so you come back to go, oh, well, I tried to make you some money, but I couldn't. And if you do get that big windfall, without, the people who didn't put up the money get the smallest share split up between them, while the person who actually did the gambling gets the big chunk.
That's absolutely correct. And when they run out of people to take money from, the next step is they take it from government, as you so eloquently put earlier in the program. And so now we as taxpayers get to pay for it.
Okay. So we thought, and we learned this, of course, after both the Bernie Madoff story and several others about Wall Street run amok, that the organization which we were counting on, the SEC, to investigate these groups and to keep them from getting so upside down in their egos that they are no longer tethered to the original mission, that the SEC is essentially either powerless or meaningless.
I think they're meaningless, and it's there to pacify the public. They seldom go after large firms. I put in complaints over the years, and they don't listen. And several years, 2, 3, 4 years later, they happen. The bad things happen. And
can you give me an example of that?
They're very reluctant to go after people in the big firms in Wall Street, and the reason why is you go to work as an attorney for the SEC for 3 years or 7 years or whatever it is, and you're dealing with all these large brokerage firms, and you get contacts in the firms, and then a day comes along and you decide, well, I've had enough of this over at the SEC, making $75,000 a year, so I'll talk to Joe Schmo over at XYZ brokerage firm, who I've got to know pretty well, and say, Joe Schmo, I'd like to work for you. Your firm. Do you think you could arrange that for me? Well, of course. You've been good to us. You haven't given us a bad time. We'll have you do compliance for us, and we'll pay you $750,000 a year. And that's how it works. It's
right.
Just like in politics. You come out of politics and you become a lobbyist. And it's the same concept.
Right. Yeah, I get that. So that's interesting. So and a lawyer could make $750,000 for a brokerage house. I'm not disputing the figure, but again, it just goes to show you isn't that the money that should get redistributed to the people who are doing the investing? And I look at that and I think this is where it just seems so crazy, especially when, as you pointed out, they're handing out the bonus checks again, even without, it seems like, any regard for whether or not the economy or these groups are really all that sound. It's like they have it and they quickly redistribute it amongst themselves before anybody can take it away from them.
Absolutely. And, when you have somebody in a brokerage house like that, and let's say they've crossed the line somewhere in one of the rules, and they don't want to really get any heat, and the SEC knows what they've done. And so the former employee of the SEC, who's buddies with the person who is bringing the charges, says, look, well, I'll get into it after the bumper's over.
Okay, hang on. I want to get to that. So we're talking with Bob Chapman, international forecaster. He says the economy isn't as good as we're being told it is right now, that the signs of recovery really aren't, and that we have a very dark part of the woods to go through yet, that we can't perhaps even imagine just how bad it will be until we get there coming up. But then also we're talking about the brokerage house. I got a little bit more on that, and then I'll get off the subject, I promise you. But also, I got the blog up at coasttocoastam.com. Go take a look online if you missed crypto news earlier in the night at coasttocoastam.com.